G'day, welcome back to the channel. Want to have a brief chat, which means this video will probably be about 4 hours long. I watched another one of Stacey Abshai's videos. I saw it come up in my feed and I thought, oh, he's milking this. He's milking it. He's done a really good video. Now all his videos will be like this and they'll be boring as bat poo. But I got to say, I went and watched it and I was as stunned as with the last one. He's come up with a really great genre of video, which is, I was getting bored watching freestyle videos, flippity floppity, all the dive, roll, flip, spin, whatever, after a while, they all look like the same, there's not much to really see. It's not really very interesting watching other people doing freestyle when you've been watching them for years. But he's changed it because the message that he imparts on top of these videos, and he's doing some really good edits, means that I watched that video and I really enjoyed it. I didn't expect to enjoy it. It's another one of these videos with some cool freestyle flying and editing, but there's a message inlaid in the video, and that just makes all the difference. It was entertaining and informative, and most of all, it was inspiring. It inspired me. It's a video aimed at the community, designed to get people off their backsides and out flying again, and that's what we need as a community, because as I said in my previous video, people are just given up. They're just getting tired, and there's a great deal of malaise entering the hobby for so many reasons. And today I want to talk about those reasons again, because we as a group, as a community, and I'm talking here about FPV quad flyers and people who fly fixed wings, traditional hobby flyers who now find that they're operating outside of the national model flying body, the AMA, BMFA, MAAA, Model Flying New Zealand, that kind of group. They're now operating outside of that because those organisations, those national model flying bodies, generally have done deals with the regulator, and those deals don't always sit well with the people who have been members. I mean, I'm the example. I think Model Flying New Zealand's does a great job for its members, aside from not having pushed back on regulation. And it's, I would recommend anybody joins that organisation. I can't, because unfortunately, one of the conditions of being a member of our national model flying body is that you agree to follow all the civil aviation regulations, and I can't do that because I like to fly little quads around my house, FPV, and it's a breach of the regulations, as I've covered this in the past. It's flying FPV without a spotter, and it's flying beyond visual line of sight. Both of those are against New Zealand civil aviation regulations. So if I do that, I'm in breach of the conditions of membership of Model Flying New Zealand. So, it's a case of, well, Mr. Simpson, make your mind up, one or the other. And I enjoy flying around my house, so I'm not a member of Model Flying New Zealand. I shouldn't have to make that choice. But it's a choice I have to make, and I suspect other people in other parts of the world are facing similar choices. So we need to look at ourselves as a group. Also in this group, I'd include camera drone operators, of course. There's a lot of camera drone operators who are getting increasingly marginalised by regulation and so forth. Nobody with a Mavic is going to go to an AMA field and fly around a little square of grass and enjoy the experience. It's not where you want to fly one of those craft, is it? So, yeah. Anyway, so I looked at it, and basically back in 2015 when we started with our Blackout Mini H's or ZMR 250s with 1806 motors that rattled and base flight on a Naze 32 controller, they were shaky days. My goodness, it was fun because everything was new and exciting and different, and it was just hard to keep something in the air. You'd get motors desyncing and you'd get all sorts of things happening, and so it was just every flight was a flight of terror, and who knows where you'd end up. But it was great. We loved it. We enjoyed it because it was new and exciting. Now, these days, of course, totally different. But back in 2015, we weren't seen as evil people trying to do bad things. We were a bunch of geeky people having fun, flying our toys in parks and anywhere we could, basically. And we enjoyed it, and people didn't think school grounds, all that sort of stuff. People looked on and they were interested, but, what do these people do? I don't know. It doesn't affect me. I'm happy. There were no Karens. You're more likely to get a Karen complaining about someone flying a nitro model at a park because the noise, oh, you damn people, the noise keeps me awake, than you were with a quadcopter, because the old ZMR 250s, the 1806 motors, didn't make a snotload of noise. Those little floppy, what are they, gem fan plastic props, 5x3, that broke at the slightest knock. They were so flexible, they didn't make a lot of noise. So we didn't have the screaming 6S machines that we have today. And so, different world. And regulation wasn't really a thing. Back then, we had the FAA had its section 336, I think it was, which was the rule for model aircraft, which meant that there were no rules It was just advisory information. There were no actual regulations covering model aircraft. It was just, don't fly. We recommend you don't fly over 400 feet. We recommend you don't fly beyond visual line of sight. But we don't have a rule, so if you do it, we can't do anything. That was great. It had the freedom. People who flew model aircraft and who flew FPV quadcopters had freedoms. We could do pretty much what we wanted. Where were the bodies? Where were the fallen aircraft? Where was all the things that supposedly we run the risk of causing these days? Nowhere. It was just crap. The reason that the Section 336 was revoked was solely because of the work of the Commercial Drone Alliance in the USA that said, if you don't rein in these model flyers and these droners, we can never commercialize the skies for our drones, our commercial drones. So the Congress or the Senate or whatever it was said, okay, no, we have to regulate these damn model aircraft. If it means that people won't make money out of drones, we have to regulate these toys out of the sky. And that's what they've done. So the world has changed. The world has changed a lot. Public perception has changed. The regulatory environment has changed. But our hobby hasn't changed much. That's the trouble. We're still, wish it was 2015. So maybe we have to adapt to the changing environment. If we want to get back and have some real fun without having to worry about, do I have a remote ID module on my drone? Will I be stopped by police and will they want to see my registration? All that sort of stuff. If we want to avoid that, and is a Karen going to come and scream at me just because I'm flying in the park? If we want to avoid that, we have to adapt. We can't change the world around us. There's not enough of us. We don't have enough power. And remember, the drone regulations are made by people who are far more powerful than us, who are subject to lobbying and influence from commercial groups. We're a non-commercial entity of small in numbers, and we won't have much effect. Now we have, for example, the FPV Freedom Coalition in the USA was set up with lofty goals to get in there and box for the FPV flyers, largely been unsuccessful. Not through a lack of effort, I might say, on the part of the people who run that, because they've done a sterling job. Our hat goes off to them. But the fact is, if you go to one of their town hall meetings online on YouTube, streamed live, you're lucky to get double digits in terms of the people who turn up. There's just not enough numbers behind them to have any real effect. I mean, the recreational aviation community in the USA has a lot of clout. Even the paraglider community has a lot of clout because they've got more numbers, they're more organised, they present a better face. We are small in numbers, weak in stature, and we don't count for beans. So we're never going to be able to change the regulations as they stand. And the problem was we had an opportunity through our national model flying bodies, AMA, BMFA, MAAA, all those groups had the opportunity to push back because they have the weighted numbers. There's 200,000 members of the AMA in the USA. If they'd pushed back, then the FAA would have had to yield a little. They couldn't just turn around and say, I'm sorry, 250,000 people, your hobby is cancelled. They couldn't do that. That public outcry would be overwhelming. But they had the opportunity and they blew it. They totally blew it. They simply said, ooh, tell us what to do. Tell us what we shouldn't do. We'll strike a deal. Give us a little crumb like a freer and we'll do whatever you like. We won't complain about these regulations that are obviously stupid and over the top. So that's why you ended up with that. And that's why here in New Zealand, I can't join Model Flying New Zealand because they struck a deal with the CAA here in New Zealand that basically, if I want to fly this around my house, I'm considered far too dangerous and risky to be a member of a national model flying body and enjoy the privileges that offers. Yeah, anyway, aside from that, we need to adapt. And I'm thinking we need to adapt to a niche, create ourselves a niche that we can prove we're safe, we're not a threat, we're not a risk to anybody. And you know how we do that? Well, this is how we do it. Yep. We go small, we go tiny. A lot of people are going, oh no, I want to fly my 5-inch, I want to fly my 7-inch, I want to fly whatever. Well, it doesn't stop you from flying those, but if you want to fly something this small, we have an opportunity to create what I would call a sanctuary. An area free from prescriptive regulation and the hassles of enforcement that, risking that we're going to get a fine or worse if we fly a drone in the wrong place. This is what we need to do. We need to go and say to the regulators, look, we got a deal. If I got a deal for you, Mr. Regulator, because it's going to have to be a deal. And we've seen in the case of national model flying bodies, the regulators are open to doing deals. They're not open to just, changing their rules for no reason. But if you've got to offer them something, if you're going to offer them a benefit, they'll consider making changes to suit you because they don't want to do any more work than they have to. There's a lot of coffee to be drunk. There's a lot of scones and biscuits to be eaten in the halls of power. And they don't want to be working so hard there's no time for that. So if we can offer them a deal that means more coffee time, more cake and biscuit time, the chances are that they'll look at that quite favourably. So here's the deal we offer them. Now, no one can dispute, it is indisputable, that a craft this size poses no threat to man nor property. I mean, even if we go look at Canada Canada has the micro drone category, which is actually a lot bigger than that. It's sub 250 grams. And in Canada, let me first of all tell you, there are two types of regulation. There is performance-based and there is prescriptive. Prescriptive regulation is the one that's heavy with rules. You may not fly over 400 feet. You may not fly beyond visual line of sight. You may not fly over a crowd of people. You may not. There's a whole list of you may nots. That's prescriptive. It tells you in the minute detail the things you can and can't do. It prescribes what you can do, prescribes what you can't do. And that's quite common in high-risk environments where you want to make sure you've got full control over people, so I'm not going to endanger anyone. You issue a huge list of prescriptive regulations. The other type is performance-based, and that's where you tell people what you are trying to achieve. And in the case of micro drones in Canada, you are trying to achieve an environment where nobody is injured or killed and no property is damaged. So you say, you may not endanger people or property. That's performance-based. It doesn't matter how you do that. The responsibility as a drone or model flyer is that you don't endanger people and you don't endanger property. So it's up to you to decide how to safely do that. Now you might say, oh yeah, but people are stupid. They'll make wrong decisions and people will get hurt or property will get damaged. Well, let's look at the history of that. Let's look at the solid, hard data. And the reality is that micro drone category and performance-based regulation has been a thing in the Canadian regulations for quite a few years now. How many people have died? Let me see. I can't think of anyone. How many people have been seriously injured? Maybe it might have been a tiny handful, but it's certainly not enough to count beyond the fingers of one hand. How much major property damage has occurred? None that I'm aware of. So obviously people can be trusted, except I do note that Transport Canada has added one prescriptive rule to this performance-based regulation for micro drones. They've said you may not fly, I think, over or near advertised events. Because I think there's been a couple of instances where stupid people have flown drones on concerts and hit people, around concerts and things. So the Transport Canada decided, can't trust people not to fly over music events and stadiums, so we'll just add that one prescriptive rule to the performance-based regulation. And now everything's back to happy and dandy because, it should be fine. So they've said sub 250 gram drones are safe enough that we don't have to make all the prescriptive rules just a performance-based regulation, and we've just added this extra rule just to be super safe. So what if we come along now and say, well, sub 250, that's fine, they're pretty safe. We're only going to fly sub 100 gram drones. They are super safe. Even if you want to, you can't hurt someone with a drone like this. Even if you flew this over a stadium full of people or a music concert and something went wrong, no one's going to get hurt. No one's going to die. The worst that can happen is someone might choke if it falls in their mouth. So from that respect, you don't need any prescriptive rules. And even the performance-based rules are almost unnecessary because even if you tried, you couldn't endanger people, you couldn't endanger property with one of these. So what I'm proposing is that we create our own category of model aircraft and drones, which is sub 100 grams super safe category. And we go to the regulators and say, look, we've created this category of drones called super safe. And we can prove to you that they are indeed super safe. Even if we want to, we can't cause the problems that you're attributing to the use of larger craft and therefore you're regulating. And what we would like to do is work with you. You give us a regulatory free zone so that if we're flying one of these, the rules don't apply to us because we're not a danger. We're no more of a danger than some kid kicking a tennis ball in the street. And you don't regulate them. You don't make them register and put remote ID on their tennis balls and pass exams and whatever. It's not worth it. The risk is so low. So give us the same benefits as someone kicking a football or a tennis ball through the street. Give us that freedom. And in return, Mr. Regulator, what we offer you is obviously super safe flying, and we can guarantee you that people who are currently flying larger, less safe, I won't say dangerous, but less safe craft that might pose a risk to people or property, if you give them the opportunity to move down here and fly these small craft with the freedoms that offers, a lot of them will. Not all the time, but a lot of the time they may choose to come down here and fly these small super safe craft. And when that happens, you've reduced the risk to the public because there are fewer of these craft being flown. And your job is to reduce risk to the public. And the beauty is, there's no enforcement burden on this because there's no rules to enforce. So you've reduced your enforcement burden and you've increased public safety. More scones, more biscuits, more coffee for you. And we get the freedoms we need to ensure our hobby continues to grow and prosper in a safe and responsible manner. That's it. It's a deal. It's a deal. So we've got to present this, got to package it up, got to present it to the regulators. And I honestly believe that if it's sold properly, and I'm an entrepreneur, if it's sold properly to these regulators, they might just go for it. They might just go for it because the lure of extra coffee and biscuits is a powerful one, never to be underestimated. So we need to form ourselves into a group and say, if this sanctuary was offered to us, we would jump at it. It doesn't mean you're not going to be able to fly your bigger models. It doesn't mean that you're giving up anything, because the same, if you want to fly a bigger model under the rules that apply to it, you're free to do so. But if you just feel like going out and having some really good fun without having to worry about Karens coming out, because if you fly this in a park, nobody comes up to you and complains and bitches and moans, because for a start, no one even notices the damn thing. And so the Karens are not a problem anymore. No one's going to try and shoot this out of the sky because I think it's spying on them, because they don't even see it when it's up high. So it frees us from these social implications, the public perception that drones are evil, and it frees us from the regulatory burden. It gives us the freedoms we had back in 2015, which we've long since lost. And the technology, let's face it, the technology behind these things now is so damn good. HD video, I mean, that new, the new Cadex Ascent system, HD video, 6 grams. 6 grams for the entire video package. So building a sub 100 is a piece of cake. And these are tiny. This is a Modulus 6. I think it's like 24 grams. And this I think is like 30 something grams. So much bigger craft than this. And I've got to be honest with you, when I'm flying this, sometimes, it's analog, but a digital one would work. When I'm flying this, sometimes it's easy to forget you're not flying a bigger craft. The technology is so good now that these things perform really well. And when it's winter, you can fly them inside. Extra bonus, don't have to worry about that. Except in New Zealand, because our rule, so if you're flying inside, or the proposed rule, if you're flying inside, you have to pass an exam to be safe. That's why we need to change these rules. Ridiculous. Anyway, tell me what you think. We've got to be proactive. We've got to take this to the regulator. Can't wait for regulators to decide on their own to change rules in our favour. They never will. We've got to offer them a deal they cannot ignore, an offer they can't refuse, by making their life easier, by making the world safer, and by giving us a sanctuary in which we can fly our tiny craft. Now, a lot of people do this already. A lot of people are whooping around and they don't get bothered by the police or anything because no one knows they're there. But it'd be nice to make it official, because it becomes, you remember how we've had a thin end of the wedge working against us all the time? First of all, they did registration, then they did remote ID, and then it's going to be blah, blah. Remember that thin end of the wedge? Let's use that strategy back at regulators. We start off by saying, we'll fly sub 100, super safe, you keep an eye on us, we'll give you the stats and the records. And then after a year, maybe we can increase that to 110 grams because the technology is better and we've proven to you how safe these things are. And then another year later, maybe we can go to 150. And we can work our way up as long as we can prove along the way that we're totally safe and we're a responsible community, and having that escape place, that place for people to come to reduce the number of people flying more risky craft or less safe craft, then regulators will probably be quite keen to get people out of those heavier craft into the lighter craft, and we'll give them the vehicle with which to do it. So we create a class of our own, and we, form an international group. I don't like that because no one ever does. It's always someone else's job. But even if we can just make the deal with the regulators and then say, well, okay, I agreed to fly in this category, this super safe drone category, and includes model aircraft. You can build model aircraft so light now, there are a lot of little foamies coming out of the thing, but probably more for multi-rotors because model aircraft don't have the same stigma in a public place. But if we can get something rolling, it becomes the genesis of a movement to reform the regulations that are binding us so much, and we need to reform them, and no one's going to do it for us. We have to do it by convincing regulators that we're responsible, we know what we're doing, the stuff is safe, and just moving one little step at a time. But you've got to start somewhere. I think this is where we start. Let me know if I'm completely old and senile and stupid, and this is a ridiculous idea, because hey, it could be. And like, share, subscribe, that sort of crap, And this is it's a 20-minute video. My God. But no mid-roll ads, eh? No sponsorships, no affiliate links, because I value you far more than the tiny amount of change that those things generate. I'm here to promote, protect, and enjoy the hobby. Inform you about the hobby. Make sure we've got a hobby to enjoy. And this is just one step I think we need to take to ensure the future of this hobby. Tell me what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Landed, or I've arrived anyway. That was a cool little landing.
fuck's sake.